Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a Disassemblieview of this little guy right here. This is the Spyderco Kapara CQI revision version. First off, before I go any further, I want to thank my buddy Hawkwit over at the Lamplight Reviews channel. He's a nice guy generally, but he also loaned this guy my way, and that's actually really interesting because Spyderco has made a major change to this guy that they've let completely under the radar. In fact, you will not find special advertising about a CQI Kapara. That means constant quality improvement. Basically, they made some changes. You won't find advertising about it. It won't be marked differently. It'll just be that the new Kaparas are done in a very different way. And so the main difference here is that this guy now drops shut, like a PM2. It now has a, versus previously, you really kind of had to press it shut. Now when you pull that back, it just drops. But more importantly, they've done something very different on the inside here that I've actually not seen yet, but I've seen photos of and that I kind of want to highlight here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, rather than doing a full re-review of a knife that is already a gem and just is better, what I'm going to do is take it apart and show you guys what they've done in here, and that way you can get a sense of what's going on. And as I'm doing this, I'll talk about that. This is something that Spyderco does that I'm not aware of any other major company doing quite as regularly. Certainly other companies have made fixes mid-run, but Spyderco has a habit of making these changes to knives that could be actually substantial, where that maybe they'll change a revision, or they'll change the internals substantially, maybe they'll just make little tweaks, but they seem to be constantly making changes to their products. I'm sure it drives them crazy. When it comes time to repair, I mean, it might be fundamentally different to replace a blade or something like that of a CQI version, but nevertheless, this is, it's something I've always appreciated, because if you're constantly making your products better, well, it's harder to stagnate, right? It makes it a lot easier for people to, well, always have your best work. And so I appreciate that they're willing to do that rather than waiting for a 2.0 release or something like that. Just, stealthily making the product better. Because you know what? Every product needs to be better. If you can make something better, then do it. I'm just going to pop this guy open. And if you're ever curious about any of the tools I'm using for my disassemblies, go ahead and check out nickshabazz.com/tools. Make it easy to see what I'm using here. I'm just using a plastic spudger here to pop this guy apart. I'm almost there. I'm being gentle with it here. I probably could have put a little grunk on it and gotten that in. But, so far we're okay. All right. Come on. Pop loose. Almost. Timex Q edition right here. Interesting little piece. Weird little watch. All right. Come on. Popping you loose now. We are so close, but... Oh, hold on. We're almost there. Oh, yeah, here, come on, here we go. There we go. Okay, so what we've done here is we've popped off the liner. And when we pull this off, what we see here is something majorly different. This knife has a pivot bushing. That's right. This is a really cool thing. This is something that that isn't all that common in the knife world these days. But basically, it has a separate little collar inside of the knife's pivot. Here, I'll clean this up first before we start demonstrating on a grody knife. Well, not grody, but But anyways, what we see here is this guy has a little tiny collar that fits inside the hole of the pivot there, and then is in contact with the rest with the washers down there, that basically allows the blade to rotate very freely on those washers and to rotate around that rather than... It's just a really cool little thing. This is something we see on the Chris Reeve Shabazz. It's something we've seen on the, I've seen on the Shirogorov Hati. Their earlier versions were on washers, and those had a full-on pivot bushing system. I'm trying to think of other knives that have used the pivot bushing. The TRM... Nomad, I believe. No, not the Nomad. Was it the Nomad? One of the early TRM little guys, their tiny little travel slip joint, used the pivot bushing approach. I want to say Spartan Blade Works had something that was that way, but maybe I'm on crack there. I don't know. Either way, the pivot bushing makes for a smoother action, generally speaking. It makes for a much nicer drop, and just generally is not a bad thing whatsoever. There's a reason that, the Shabazz has the action it does. It's in part due to the pivot bushing approach. And so finding out that, Spyderco made it such that, if you hold down the compression lock, it drops shut, that's great. That's a nice little improvement here. But finding out that they're moving to a pivot bushing system on even just one knife is kind of exciting, because generally speaking, the action you get out of a pivot bushing is just better. I'm going to try and lift up this washer here. Just get under it with the spudger tool here. I could get in there with a knife, but you know what? There we go. That way I can clean underneath here. But this is a cool little thing, and it's a major change. Not major in the sense of, if you've got a Kapara, yours is now junk, and not major in the sense of there was a problem with the first generation. That's not remotely the case that I'm aware of here. No, this is just, it's an improvement. They've just taken something that wasn't particularly broke, and they've fixed it so it's a little bit better. And I love that. I probably come off like a fanboy on occasion for things like this, but honestly, incremental improvement is one of the things that makes a good knife amazing. There were lots of knives that their first generation wasn't great, but then they made the changes, and then, oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. And so, that's great. I'm a big fan of this. So, as we're taking this guy apart, we can, just put it right back together. There ain't that much difficulty here. Let's see here. Which side of you is rotating? I'm looking at this washer here and just trying to figure out exactly which part of it the blade is spinning against. It's a very nicely polished washer. Yeah, that looks like the blade side. So I'll go ahead and I'll drop this onto here. Then what I'll do is I'm going to use some knife pivot lube here. Knife pivot lube tends to be a good lubrication for phosphor bronze action. Drop that there. Put a little there. Okay. And because, assuming this is a captive pivot bushing, which I think it probably is. Yeah, it is, because the washer is, this is actually sitting on top of the washer. When I tighten down the pivot on this guy, it's actually going to trap the blade, it's going to trap the bushing in between the washers. And so that way the bushing won't turn, the washers won't turn. Instead, what will happen is that the blade itself will turn around the bushing. And so actually I didn't need to oil the inside of it there. It won't hurt anything that I did, but I didn't need to, strictly speaking. So there we go. Now we can see here that the pivot is in the middle there. The bushing is around the pivot. And as I'm spinning this guy, the bushing, well, at the moment the bushing's rotating. That's because I don't have everything put back together yet. I'll put this stop pin back into position here. I'd asked myself, am I going to do a full review of this? Is this what? And you know what? I ended up coming to the conclusion that I didn't really need to. And I still feel that way. It's a nice improvement. I wanted to highlight it. If nothing else, to just show people, look, this is a cool thing that you can do for your customers, right? You can take something good and make it better. And, people, it will get you recognition. It's one of those kind of low-key things. It's sort of a big pivot energy move, so to speak. You don't have to tell everybody that you made major changes to make something better. You just do it. But nevertheless, so I wanted to highlight it, and just, if nothing else, just to provide, hey, positive feedback. Good job, guys. But, going through and doing a full re-review would be just pointless here. Because, you know what? It's a freaking Kapara. It's good to go. So, yeah. I do in some ways wish, sometimes they have made a bigger deal out of it. Like the last one of these major rewrites they've done for a knife was the Advocate. Was the Advocate? Yeah, I think so. That was the how am I not remembering the designer of this guy? He's a super famous knife maker. Guys, I'm just not having a brilliant day here. Either way, I feel like a complete idiot. His logo's the state of Texas. I'm just... Either way, holy that's smooth. Sorry. Anyways, that was a knife that had an issue with a washer in there, and they went through and they completely redesigned the pivot system to re-release the knife. And that was a big old constant quality improvement change, and that one they advertised a little bit more, but this one, it was just like people got the new Kapara, and then they realized, like, holy crap, they changed everything. So at some level, I wouldn't mind them saying, hey, new Kaparas have this going on. Drop a video, heck, Eric, have Eric Lesser sit down and do the same thing. By the way, this clip is not the factory clip. My buddy Hawkwood had put the new clip on there. It's a fine way to go. It makes it a shallower carry, whatever. But anyways, holy crap. Okay, that's because the pivot's loose. So let's tighten up the pivot here a little bit. Holy crap, that's still smooth. There is no... Is there any blade play there? There is zero blade play. This thing drops shut in an absurd way. Wow, that's nicer. Damn. So what they've done here is they've made a shining gem shine brighter. That's great. Thank you. That's all I can say. I don't want to sound like a fanboy, but seriously, thank you for doing that. They didn't have to. They probably could have gotten away. The other one was fine. I liked it. I owned one, but this is better. This is just, strictly speaking, better. So, well done, Spyderco. Thank you for doing these kinds of things. And, Oh, boy, that's nice. I'm going to get this back to hockey. I do not need to buy another Kapara. I do not need to buy another Kapara. I do not need to buy another Kapara. And, yeah, there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you. And have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.